Hello there guys, welcome back to episode 2 of Hearts of Iron 4 as the United Kingdom, and yes, this is the second attempt at this campaign. The first time I tried it was the first time I'd ever played Hearts of Iron 4. In fact, it was the first time I'd ever played any Hearts of Iron game, and I really didn't know what I was doing. So this is going to make things a little bit more interesting now that I know what I'm doing. I see that all of these submarines are now just going to random ports. I know I set them on automatic, but I was expecting it to at least assign them to a fleet and not randomly assign them to ports that don't have any units in them. But I suppose that was probably a little bit too much to expect. I guess I might want to just send them all to the Mediterranean fleet. That's probably the best place for them to go to. Because we definitely have superiority over the channel. So let's go ahead and send the submarines to the Mediterranean fleet for the time being. We did send another ship down here, which arrived, so we'll go ahead and group you all together, so that's nice. So our big problem at the moment is manpower, because while we don't have it, we can't produce ships, we can't produce infantry, and that's going to cause us some real problems. Need to keep our eye on any units that get trained up to rank 3, so we can move them out and put them into the main army. As soon as these guys are all up to rank 3, we'll just stop them from training, so that will be fine. So we're at 139 political power. We're gaining 1 per day. As soon as we hit... right, there's home defense, and support weapons 1, and basic machine tools. A lot of stuff just happened all in quick succession. So... let's jump straight in, and yeah, we can't do issue gas masks at the moment because we can't do that until after December 1937. I knew there was a reason why you couldn't take that straight away. I just couldn't remember what it was. So we can go for Reinforce the Empire, which will give us some extra national unity, and it does allow us to start getting some experience. That's actually quite a good tree to go down. And obviously we're limited to what we can grab here. Obviously we will want to go down the Shadow Scheme and the industrial effort as quickly as possible to get the extra research slot. Do we want the motorised army straight away? We don't have any manpower, so let's go for Reinforce the Empire, get the base national unity up. Let us have a very quick look over here now and see what we've got. So, now that we've opened basic machine tools, we decide whether we want to go with a concentrated industry or a dispersed industry. Now, the difference between them is, with a dispersed industry, you have more resistance to being bombed, but you don't have as much output in terms of your factories. A concentrated industry does give you more factory output. So if you compare these, factory output 20% versus an extra 10%, this does have more efficiency retention as well, dispersed industry. So if you're often changing between production lines, dispersed industry is better. I went down that route last time. I'm going to go down the concentrated industry this time around. Are we ahead of time there? No, it's just telling us it's mutually exclusive. So we'll go ahead and do that. As for our next tech, there's quite a lot of things I'd like to get. I would like to get... well, we are a bit ahead of time there. We will want to get some mountain infantry at some point as well, because there are a lot of mountains on the borders between Germany, France, Spain, so it is worth having that. Support battalions, I will want to get the military police as well, and I will also want to get the improved artillery. I think I'm just going to get the improved artillery, because that should make the war a lot easier for us and make combat a lot easier for us in general. If you're wondering why I'm only playing on speed 3 and not playing on speed 4 or 5, it's because the game is still a little bit laggy. It does have some performance issues, and even with a relatively low overhead recording solution like Shadowplay, it still does cause quite a few frame drops, which leads to the audio getting out of sync, and I don't really want to mess around with, you know, bad audio and stuff like that. So most of the time speed 3 will probably be the quickest that I run the game on, but you know, I talk a lot of crap, so I've got stuff to fill. We're only 3 days away now from actually getting enough political power to change our government. Now, normally I would like to use that to add a minister of some sort to improve things, but getting the manpower going is vitally important, because at the moment we have absolutely nothing. There's nothing in the tank at all. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to modify this to limited conscription, and instantly we've got 328,000 manpower to play with. Now, that's not a lot, because as you can see, we've already lost 50k just in a single day. So that goes away very, very quickly. but we do need as much manpower as possible. We might have to go ahead and put some of the ships on hold at some point and actually set a limit. I wonder, is there an actual limit that we can set to fleets? You can all group up now. Automatic split off, let's just pause up there. Create new fleet, repair now. Now, I was wondering if there was an option like you have with the Air Force, where you can say this fleet only gets to a certain size, but I think it'll just keep going and going and going. So there's the Spanish Civil War. A civil war has erupted in Spain. Several generals seeking to overthrow the current government in Madrid have issued a pronunciamiento, and a large portion of the Spanish armed forces have answered their call to arms. The right-wing nationalist faction has occupied much of Spain, including the overseas territories. Loyalist forces and volunteers have assembled under the left-wing Republican government, determined to resist the push until their last breath. The battle for Spain has begun. So that's going to be raging on for a little bit of time. Unfortunately, we can't get involved in it. This is one of the downsides about playing as a democracy, is that you're very, very limited to what you can get involved in, but things do certainly open up for you. Options definitely become apparent as the game goes on. How are we doing here with the training? We've almost got some regiments who are up to the 3rd rank. The units down in Africa are obviously going to take quite a bit longer. We might want to get some infrastructure down there at some point, but it's not of vital importance to us. We are still working on some of these civilian factories. Then we'll be moving on to a few more military factories. I'm not going to waste too much time messing around with forts and coastal forts and anti-air and stuff like that on this game. The United Kingdom does have quite a few national focuses that give you some free forts and coastal forts. And secondly, with a decent enough navy in these, with a decent enough navy in this area, so around the Channel, the North Sea, and whatever region they count this as, the Eastern North Sea and the Baltic, we can pretty much protect ourselves from any naval invasions anyway. So our manpower is still going down, but that's fine because we are training units up. We are starting to get some new divisions now. You can see we have this 6th Infantry Division. So that must be one of the new divisions that we did train up. Or, I don't know, maybe it isn't. Not too sure where that unit came from then. Not sure we changed anything. We do have a couple of units here, though, that are now up to rank 3. So we'll go and put them into that army. Now, another thing that has changed is there's two main reasons why I decided to start using mods. So first of all, there's the Treaty of Addis Ababa. Italy took over Ethiopia, as we expected. So the first mod I'm using is the one that highlights selected units in green and non-selected units in red and things like that. Just makes it easier to know which units you have selected and which units you don't. It's a lot easier to see. That's just a very, very minor mod. But one of the ones that... one of the mods that I do really, really like, the one that changes the strategic map. The thing that makes that so good is that if you set something now like a front line, for example, and let's just... if we were to draw a front line here, won't let's do it anyway because it's in our own country, so ignore that. But one thing that I was finding very difficult is whenever you were drawing lines on the map, be it front lines or push lines or whatever, it was very, very difficult to tell which army they belonged to because the colours were so desaturated and washed out. So the main reason that I'm using this strategic map enhancement is it actually makes all of the battle plans a much more saturated colour, and it more closely matches the colour that you've assigned to the army, so it's easy to see at a glance which units belong to which battle plan. And yeah, I think that's going to work out very, very well for us. We are 4 days away from getting Construction 1 completed, which is very nice. Like I said, there are a few things that I would like to do. We'll soon be able to just throw some military police into the armies down in Africa. And again, I know people are going to say it's too early, you don't need them, but I don't really do much with the armies down in Africa. So what I want to be able to do is literally throw those military police in, and then I forget about those armies until they're needed. So we could go for excavation, which would give us some more resource gain, which is not a bad idea. But I think I will go away and start working on the military police for now. We'll just get those done. We are building up some army experience. Very, very slow. because we're only building that up from doing the exercises. And I was having a problem in my my previous game, my sort of test game, if you like, where I was actually gaining so much army experience, I was constantly hitting the cap. And there's only two things you can do with army experience, as far as I'm aware. One, you can go ahead and build new sort of new templates in the Division Designer, and secondly, is you can improve tanks. So you can actually go ahead and, you know, give them better armor and better engines and stuff like that. Also, this Division Designer, one thing they have supposed to have changed, can't see it now. There was, in version 1.1.0, they were supposed to have made it so that you could just make a new division from scratch without having to duplicate a previous one. Duplicating a division template will create a copy of the current division template for free. We'll see how that goes. How are we doing on artillery and motorised? 150 motorised, 108 artillery. It's not a lot and it's not enough. Support equipment and infantry equipment we are falling behind in. That is fine though, because we are in the process of building more factories. Obviously we need to get the civilian factories built first. And you know, we've got 3 factories that are sort of underway. This one is going to be completed in September of 36, so not too far away. I think we will actually go up to speed 4. I know I was saying I don't usually run above speed 3 because the game gets quite choppy, but there aren't really many wars going on at the moment, so it's not really going to affect it all that much. Let's have a quick look down here in Spain. Looks like Nationalist Spain is doing a lot of the pushing. You can tell which way these battles are going. Well, you can't tell who's winning and losing, but you can tell who the attacker and the defender is. So the icon for the battle is always in the defending tile. So as all of these icons are in the Republican Spanish territory, that means that the Nationalists are attacking into those tiles. And there's only 1 or 2 where they're pushing back, so they might be out there. So we've gone and got reinforced the Empire. That does give us some more national unity. Now, if we go ahead and get this service overseas, and that'll give us some experience, and that does go into some useful stuff, especially going into things like Commonwealth ties and things like that, which is always nice to get really, really early. And also getting things like extra naval base and coastal fort in Alexandria. So I think we'll go for service overseas. Getting that free experience is nice. But I also think that as soon as possible, we probably want to get Motorised Army and the Royal Tank Regiment up and running. There's a lot of things in that list that we can't pick at the moment because we're not at war or the world tension isn't high enough, but that will change as things go on. So most of the units in this army now are fully reinforced, so we'll go ahead and put them all in there. So we should start, hopefully, getting some new units in. So what we want to do is we want to put our reinforcements on low priority at the moment. So what was happening is all of the production that we had going for our weaponry, our infantry equipment, support equipment, and it still says it is being used for reinforcements, but it was going to reinforce as a priority. So our new units weren't being trained because there was no equipment for them. So we've just put reinforcements onto low priority just for the time being. So there's the games for the 11th Olympiad. The 11th Olympic Games were recently held in Berlin, Germany. Attended by athletes from 49 different nations across the world, the 1936 Summer Olympics are the first in history to have enjoyed limited live television coverage. The Games were a significant propaganda victory for the German regime, which spent lavishly on the event. German athletes saw the most success, winning 33 gold medals, while the Americans came in second with 24. 4 of these were won by Jesse Owens, the single most successful athlete of the Games. And the Games are concluded. So we will just carry on burning through our manpower, burning through all of our supplies. As soon as we start getting some additional military factories, we will get to a point where we just have a load of military factories, and that'll be really good for us. There's mechanical computing done. So, can we get anything else in here? No, we're quite ahead of time on a lot of stuff. There are various doctrines and things that we could get. We probably want to upgrade from the Vickers to the Matilda as quickly as possible as well. Start getting some much better tanks. So let's just go ahead and start researching the better light tanks. So what will happen is, as you can see at the moment, if we look at our supplies, it says we have light tanks. Now, if we click on that, it tells us that these are Vickers too. So what will happen is, if we then switch to a different type of light tank, as the new light tanks are produced, they will reinforce and be exchanged for the older light tanks that are in the current regiments, or the current divisions. And all of the older light tanks will come back and go into stockpile. They will be used if we get desperate for them. They will still be used as reserve supplies, but they will try and switch out to the new ones wherever possible. So how are we going on production at the moment? See, light tanks, motorised and artillery are filled, but we are trying to get a bit of a stockpile of them. Planes aren't doing too bad. Our fighters are doing fairly well. We'll probably want to get these upgraded for Spitfires as quickly as possible. In fact, the next time we can pick a technology... not Spitfires, Hurricanes. So we can go for Hurricanes. Not too sure whether or not we will want any strategic bombers. So the difference between a tactical bomber and a strategic bomber. Tactical bombers are more useful for close air support. So they will actually help bomb enemy bunkers and enemy armor and things like that, and help the infantry. Strategic bombers are more focused on actually blowing up buildings, factories and stuff like that. We probably will get some at some point, but we might want to go for the Wellingtons first. But yeah, we definitely want to get the Hurricane as quickly as possible, just so that we can start building Hurricanes instead of Gladiators. I think they actually have a much better range. Let's have a quick look on that. Same service manpower, naval attack, max speed. Yeah, they're much quicker. Same reliability. Air attack is double. Operational range is, yeah, 130 better. So I think we definitely want to try and get the Hurricanes researched as quickly as possible. There is quite a lot to research early on, but that's not a colossal problem, simply for the fact that, again, we're not really at war with anybody. When we can upgrade our government again, what we could probably do is we can switch a few of these things. So we can go from export focus to free trade. I think the free trade one is better. I'm trying to remember what the difference was now. So resources to market would be 80% instead of 50%. It would increase our factory output from 10% by an extra 15 to 15% bonus. Construction speed goes up as well, and research time goes down. So free trade is definitely better for us. We can also switch from civilian economy. Well, we can't do that at the moment because we do need a certain amount of... we need to be at war before we can do any of this stuff. So let's go ahead and do what I said I was going to do, which is start work on the Hurricane. So we'll go and do that. Make sure we're unpaused. And service overseas has now finished. So what we could do is go into motorized armory, or we could go into encourage colonial elite. Grants national spirit, which grants minus 5% research time. So that's well worth having. So we'll go ahead and get that. What I like to do after that is then go down into Commonwealth ties, so we get a lot of opinion swings with Canada, Australia, the British Raj, New Zealand and South Africa. We can also do development in Canada, give them some factories, same with South Africa and Raj, and you might think, well, why would we want to do that? They're not our countries, but when the war comes, they will quite happily start sending units our way, so anything we can do to help them sort of build up their own armies is going to be really, really good for us. Fortify East Asia. I tend to not pay all that much attention to this tree because Japan aren't the biggest issue. Yes, we do have some sort of eastern territories that we might lose to Japan, but I think dealing with the European threat first is the biggest issue. So we will get that done. But yeah, ideally I want to try and sort of start working through these trees where possible. Don't know what's wrong with my voice this week. I keep losing it. We can modify our government. Now, what we could do here is we could get somebody... where are we? Political power gain. I mean, political power gain will pay for itself eventually, so that's never a bad thing, getting that extra 15%. Manpower's okay at the moment. Let's go ahead and take him for now then. So what that's going to do is mean instead of gaining 1 political power per day, we're actually now gaining 1.3 per day, which is significant. Because we're getting 15% onto our base. So even though it looks like we're only getting 1 per day, our base value is 2. You actually spend 1 political power a day to work on your national focus. So 15% of it's 15% of 2 that we're gaining, not 15% of 1. So we're gaining that extra 0.3 per day. So that'll soon pay for itself, really. I mean, what? 450 days and it's paid for itself because it'll have paid back the 150 that we spent to get it. So it's definitely worth getting that as early on as we can. Let's have a look here. You are still training up these divisions. How are the new divisions coming? So we've got 4 of these divisions that are doing fairly well. Mostly they're waiting for their equipment. So they've got all of their support equipment, but they are waiting on infantry equipment. That's fine. What about you guys down here in Africa? So a lot of you guys are almost done. One thing we will have over here is once I add military police to these regiments, because these are just colonial garrison regiments, once I add military police to these regiments, they will lose some experience, which means we'll have to train them up again for a little bit, but that's fine. So we've got another research slot available. We're a little bit ahead of time for picking any of these things, unless we want to go for excavation. We're ahead of time on these things. Like I said, we will want some mountain troops, which would be very, very useful for us. We're working on the artillery, which is fine. Land doctrine. Max planning plus 30% could certainly be useful for us if we have to go and mobilise quickly. Doctrines do take quite a decent amount of time to get completed, but I think that's one that is well worth having. So we will go and work on that. So Montgomery's getting these guys into shape. What we could do if we wanted to is go into recruit and deploy, and we can go ahead and hit this button and say deploy all of these guys instantly, and they wouldn't be fully supplied and they wouldn't have all of their training, so they'd actually come in as being green as opposed to come in as being... I can't remember what the units are now. There's green, there's trained. So they'd actually come in as green and not trained, which would just take them even longer to train up, which is not a bad thing, because that way you just gain more army experience. Now, speaking of which, military police are 32 days away, 31 days now, so when they are done, we will go and add them to those divisions, and then that'll be those guys dealt with. I won't need to worry about them after that. We only have 1 more civilian factory to work on, then we're going to start moving on to some of the military factories, then we've got a few more civilian factories queued up. King Edward abdicates. Prime Minister Baldwin has made it quite clear that the dignity of the King Emperor will be impinged if he were to marry not just a commoner, but also a divorcee. And if that was not bad enough, an American. After much soul-searching, His Majesty has chosen love over duty and has chosen to abdicate. His younger brother, Albert, will assume the mantle as King George VI. London bookmakers are already taking odds on whether this shy man will make it to his own coronation. But that does remove that national unity rubbish that we have, and it gives us an extra plus 15% because of King George. So now we're up to 80% national unity, which is really nice for us. We've already got some naval and air experience in the bag. We will save that for the time being. We might actually spend a little bit of it on the Hurricanes just to make them a little bit better. Or maybe we'll save it until we get some better bombers. I'm not too sure what I want to do with that right now. Before we end the video, though, we'll just go in and choose our next national focus. So I think we are going to go with the Commonwealth ties, just to get everybody nice and friendly. And that is probably a good place to end. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you are still enjoying Hearts of Iron 4. I'll see you on the next video. And until then, goodbye for now.